If you're seeing this right now, it's not random. It's not luck. It's not a scroll that landed on the right frame. It's a summons. The Holy Spirit has drawn you to this moment because heaven has something to say, and it can't wait until morning. Some messages don't belong to tomorrow. Some moments carry the weight of eternity, and this is one of them. God isn't whispering this time. He's knocking. And the door He's asking you to open isn't just about prayer, it's about alignment. Revelation 3 verse 20 tells us that He stands at the door and knocks, but what many forget is this: He doesn't knock forever. There's a moment to answer, and that moment is now. There are some nights that feel different, and maybe this is one of those for you. You can feel it in your chest, a tightness, a stirring, maybe even an ache, not from fear, but from a sense that something spiritual is shifting. That is not anxiety, that is invitation. It's the pull of heaven trying to shake your spirit out of the fog of distraction. Because tonight is not just another night, it's a divine appointment. God is urgently reaching out, not to punish, not to shame, but to position you. He wants to realign your heart, your posture, your focus. Before He releases what He has for you tomorrow, He needs to have a conversation with you tonight. Amos 3 verse 7 reveals that God does nothing without revealing it to His prophets first. But sometimes before a door opens in the natural, He reveals something in the quiet place, in the private hour, in the stillness of the now. You may have felt disconnected lately. Maybe the world has been loud and God has seemed quiet, or maybe you've been carrying a heaviness you can't quite explain. This isn't a coincidence. That weight, that unrest. It's the Spirit within you sensing divine movement. Heaven is shifting something, but only those who are listening will move with it. God doesn't just want to be heard tonight, He wants to be answered. This is more than hearing a word, it's about responding with your life. This is about posture, because tomorrow carries something weighty, and your response tonight will determine your readiness. You don't need to have all the answers, you just need to be available. When He calls your name, He's not asking for perfection, He's asking for permission. Permission to move in you, to move through you, to prepare you for what's about to unfold. I feel it deeply. This moment is tender. There's an urgency in God's Spirit right now for His children to come closer. Not later, not eventually, but immediately. There is something ahead and your spirit knows it. Hebrews 3 verse 15 says, "Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. Don't delay when the King is calling. Don't silence the Spirit just because you're unsure." What God wants to speak tonight is the seed for what He plans to grow tomorrow. But that seed must fall on surrendered ground. You weren't drawn here for inspiration. You were summoned for preparation. You are being positioned by God to walk into something larger than yourself. What looks like confusion may be the holy disorientation before divine clarity. What feels like restlessness might be heaven waking your spirit up for revelation. So let me speak this directly and boldly. Heaven is speaking. The angels are watching. The Spirit is hovering. And God your Father is calling your name. The silence between God's voice and your response is the most dangerous space you'll ever stand in. Not because He will abandon you, but because if you hesitate too long, the moment will pass and the door He opened may quietly close behind you. Heaven has set an alarm on your destiny, and it's about to go off. You've likely felt it in the unseen corners of your heart, a restlessness, a divine unease that makes no sense in the natural. That's because you're not dealing with ordinary time, you're standing inside God's time. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 says, "There is a season for everything, and a time for every purpose under heaven." But the holy tension is this: not every time waits for you to feel ready. Some moments are God-ordained appointments, and they are sacredly timed. Right now, heaven's clock is ticking, and not in anxiety or fear, but with divine precision. This moment has been carved into the eternal calendar with your name written on it. You are not standing on a random Tuesday night or a forgettable Thursday afternoon. You are standing on the threshold of divine access. God is not working around your schedule. He's calling you to align with His. Delay is not just a pause, it's a decision. A delayed response to God is still a response. And too often we disguise hesitation as humility or fear as discernment. But make no mistake, spiritual passivity can cost you supernatural position. When God opens a window, it is not for you to admire, it is for you to move through. This is a time-sensitive move of God. Isaiah 55 verse 6 says, "Seek the Lord while He may be found. Call on Him while He is near." That implies there is a window. There is a nearness that is not guaranteed forever. God's presence is not scarce, but our awareness of it can fade when we delay. The Spirit is near now, and He is urging you not just to believe, but to act. Picture Jesus weeping over Jerusalem in Luke 19 verse 44. Why did He cry? Because they did not recognize the time of their visitation. They missed the hour of heaven's interruption. They were praying for a move of God, and when He showed up, they were too caught up in routine to recognize Him. They were faithful in religion, but deaf to timing. And that is a tragedy we must not repeat. If you've ever wondered why you're feeling stirred when nothing around you has changed, this is why. Your spirit knows what your eyes cannot yet see. That's the prophetic sensitivity God gives to those who are being called higher. It's not anxiety, it's acceleration. He's moving you forward before things shift in the natural. That urgency you feel, that spiritual velocity, the kind that carries you into divine breakthrough if you respond with immediacy. There's something powerful about moving with God when He moves, not ahead of Him, not behind Him, with Him. That kind of alignment doesn't just shift your emotions, it positions your entire life. It sets you in the flow of divine provision, divine revelation, and divine protection. But it requires that you be tuned in to the now, not distracted, not hesitant, not stuck in spiritual procrastination, but surrendered, available, and ready. You don't have to understand everything to say yes. You don't need a 5-year vision to respond to tonight's invitation. All you need is a heart that beats in time with His. And right now, His heart is calling you forward. He's drawing you into a sacred space of preparation, not to burden you, but to bless you with access that only readiness can unlock. There are moments when God doesn't speak through thunder, but through a whisper, and to hear a whisper, you have to get close. This isn't a time for applause or affirmation from others. It's not a season for platform spotlight or performance. It's a sacred invitation into holy obscurity, where God removes the crowds not to punish you, but to prepare you. Tonight, the divine agenda is quiet, not silent quiet. Because God isn't trying to make a public announcement, He wants a private conversation. You see, spiritual clarity doesn't usually strike in the middle of chaos. It comes in the quiet, the stillness, that secret place where your soul stops running and your heart finally gets still enough to listen. Psalm 46 verse 10 doesn't suggest silence, it commands it. Be still and know that I am God. The knowing of God doesn't come from more noise, more activity, or more striving. It comes from surrender. It comes from stillness. There is a unique kind of revelation God reserves for those who are willing to separate for a moment just to meet with Him. Jesus Himself modeled this. Mark 1 verse 35 paints the picture. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where He prayed. The Son of God, who had perfect communion with the Father, still stepped away from the crowd to hear with clarity. And if Jesus needed that solitude, how much more do we? Let me tell you something deeply personal. God doesn't desire your attention as part of a crowd. He wants your heart when no one else is looking. Alone time with God is not the warm-up, it's the warfare. It's not just devotion, it's direction. It's the place where confusion lifts and peace settles. Where your emotions fall quiet under the authority of His presence. Where the questions that have been tormenting your mind suddenly get swallowed up in the simplicity of His whisper, "I am with you, I've always been." The truth is, noise interrupts revelation. The external voices you keep chasing for confirmation, God wants to silence them so that His voice can be the loudest. But He doesn't shout over your distractions. He waits, patiently, lovingly, longingly. And when you finally shut the door to everything else, He begins to speak. Matthew 6 verse 6 gives us the roadmap. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. The world rewards visibility. Heaven rewards secrecy. And that's why your most powerful moments with God will rarely be the ones that anyone else sees. They'll be the ones that happen in the stillness of your room with no lights, no music, and no followers. Just you and the Father. And that's where the real transformation begins. Because when you're alone with God, you're not just praying, you're posturing your soul. You're laying down every mask, every performance, every defense, and saying, "Here I am, Lord. Speak. Correct me. Heal me. Hold me." And in that posture, God doesn't just meet you, He molds you. If you've been wondering why clarity hasn't come, maybe it's because the noise hasn't stopped. Breakthrough isn't waiting for a new sermon or another prophetic word. It's waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear the one who never stopped speaking. You don't need a platform to hear from God. You just need a pillow, a quiet room, and a surrendered heart. Underestimate what's happening in that solitude. Heaven takes note of every second you spend in the secret place. Alone time with God is never wasted, it's worship. The angels don't applaud it. The crowd doesn't repost it, but the Father rewards it. Because in those hidden moments, your spirit is being fed, your ears are being opened, and your future is being shaped. This is your holy hour to unplug and go off the grid, not from responsibility, but from distraction. The shepherd's voice is clearest when the sheep stop running. And sometimes all heaven needs from you is not a shout of praise, but a surrendered silence. Beloved, when the ground beneath you starts trembling and everything feels unstable, it's easy to think something is falling apart. But what if it's not a collapse? What if it's a construction site for your transformation? What if the shaking you feel isn't the end, but the beginning? This isn't your breakdown, it's your birth. You are not being buried, you are being planted. And though the soil feels dark, and the pressure feels suffocating, there's something sprouting under the surface. Heaven is moving, and it's moving inside of you. Romans 8 verse 22 tells us that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. What you're feeling isn't foreign to the spiritual realm. The groans, the tears, the questions, they're labor pains. You're not breaking down. You're birthing purpose. That unexplained anger, that sudden weeping, those intense waves of confusion or overwhelming joy that seem to come out of nowhere, don't dismiss them. Emotional outbursts are often spiritual signals. You're being rearranged from the inside out. The Spirit is realigning your emotions not to destroy you, but to recalibrate you. You are being made sensitive again, not to wounds, but to wonder. And sometimes the softening of your spirit shows up first as shaking in your soul. It's disorienting, I know, but confusion and heaviness are often the prelude to divine alignment. You're not lost, you're being rerouted. The fog you're walking through isn't meant to blind you. It's meant to keep you walking by faith. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 17 reminds us, For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. You may not see the glory yet, but God is already measuring it out. He's using every tremor and every tear. There are seasons when it feels like your world is out of order, like God is disrupting everything familiar. But heaven doesn't disturb you without purpose. God disturbs the surface before he heals the root. You prayed for growth, and this is the answer. The soil had to be broken. The ground had to be turned over. Those buried things, unresolved pain, hidden sin, forgotten promises, they had to be brought to light so God could deal with them fully. He's not a surface-level healer. He goes deep. And here's the truth. No one talks about enough pain is often prophetic. Yes, pain. Not just words, not just visions, but tears and trials. If you're feeling pressed, it's not punishment, it's prophecy. Your spiritual something is near. Breakthrough isn't an abstract hope, it's the next breath. It's in the storm, in the ache, in the discomfort. Because the storm is not just a battle zone, it's a delivery room. The lightning is not meant to scare you, it's there to illuminate what you're carrying. Psalm 34 verse 18 says, "The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." When your heart is breaking, his presence is intensifying. When your strength is drained, his hand is drawing near. Heaven doesn't run from pain, it meets you in it. That's why spiritual pain is not a sign that God is far away. It's evidence that he is closer than ever. The ache in your soul is heaven knocking on the door. God is awakening you. And awakening doesn't happen gently. It happens through shaking, through divine disturbance. Rattling your cage not to scare you, but to free you. That tightness in your chest. That holy discomfort that won't let you go back to the way things used to be. That's God. That's his voice, his hand, his call to come up higher. So I urge you, don't resist the symptoms. Don't run from what you're feeling. Lean into the process. Yield to it. Your spiritual life is being resurrected, and the pain you feel is part of the process. A body that's awakening begins to twitch before it rises. Your spirit is stretching, breaking past the limits of your old self to become the version of you God always saw. And then comes the quiet. Not the peaceful kind, but the unsettling hush that wraps around your soul like a fog when prayer feels like shouting into a canyon. Has just been too noisy to hear him. The distractions, the fears, narratives, the endless rehearsals of pain in your mind, they've become louder than his whisper. Turn down the volume of everything else. We often imagine communication with God as a one-way street, us sending up prayers like flares in the night sky, hoping maybe, just maybe, he'll see one and respond. But that's never how he designed it. From the beginning, God has longed for two-way conversation. Not just monologues from us, but intimacy, deep communion. Not just speaking to God, but living with him. He doesn't demand poetry or polish. He isn't impressed by your performance. He is moved by your truth. Hebrews 4 verse 16 gives us this audacious permission. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Confidence, not perfection. Come as you are, not as you wish to be. Till the tears dry, the heart stops hurting, or the mess becomes manageable. And all the while God is saying, talk to me now. In the middle of it, with the anger, the doubt, the exhaustion, the chaos. Come to me broken, because I only work with what's real. He answers authenticity, not performance. He meets honesty with healing. When David cried out in Psalm 62 verse 8, "Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to God, refuge." He wasn't writing a polished hymn, he was emptying his soul. Pouring, not trickling. Honest, raw, undone. What you've bottled up, God's been waiting for you to release. It's not that your questions have gone unanswered, it's that your heart hasn't fully asked them yet. God works on appointed timing, not impatient timelines. Jeremiah 33 verse 3 says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." This isn't a vague hope, it's a divine promise. The answer is burning bushes or booming voices. A conversation with a friend, a passage that leaps off the page, a song that feels like it was written just for you. Heaven is not mute, it's multilingual. You just need to tune your ears. Even your silence hasn't gone unnoticed. God has heard the prayers you didn't know how to pray, the groans too deep for words, the sighs that escaped while you stared at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Not a single tear has fallen without being counted. Every cry you've released has a correlation. This is the sacred transaction. When you release what's been held in, God begins to heal what's been breaking apart. The longer you keep it hidden, the heavier it becomes. But the moment you speak, even if it's through cracked lips and a trembling voice, He leans in. He listens. He loves. You may think your silence is a wall, but in heaven, it's a doorway. It's the space God steps into. You see, some doors don't creak, they slam. Some seasons don't ease in with a whisper, they crash like waves against everything stable, familiar, and predictable. And in those moments when the floor shifts and the routine crumbles, with the olive, you don't get wine without pressing the grape, and you don't walk into destiny without first leaving the comfort of where you were. Discomfort does not mean destruction. It often means construction has started. And God the Master Builder never begins unless He's preparing something far better than what you're holding. I've learned that when everything feels like it's falling apart, it's more likely falling into place, but not my place. His. He doesn't mind shaking your plans when it means waking up your purpose. We say we want His will, but often we secretly hope it aligns with our map. And when it doesn't, we call it a setback. But it's not punishment, it's preparation. God will not let you build a life where He has not laid the foundation. He loves you too much to let your comfort. He will disturb what you've settled for. And while it may feel like loss in the moment, it is. Provided daily bread, parted waters, and revealed Himself in ways Egypt never could.
Get the top restaurants in town delivered straight to your door. Download the foodpanda app and order food you love.
That awkward in-between space where it feels like your hands are empty and your future is foggy is often the exact space where God begins to move. Sometimes he waits until you're finally out of options, so you'll stop holding the wheel. Miracles don't flow through clenched fists, they flow through surrendered hands. Proverbs 16 verse 9 reminds us, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." And how does he establish those steps? Often by disrupting yours. He shakes what can be shaken so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Your strategy might collapse, but his sovereignty stands firm. Your plans may stall, but his promise doesn't expire. A delayed plan is not a denied promise. Heaven is not on your schedule, but it is always on time. Disruption is heaven's fingerprint. The moment everything you counted on starts to shift, you can be sure the hand of God is nearby. Isaiah 43 verse 19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" The real question isn't whether God is moving, it's whether we're willing to perceive it, even when it doesn't look like what we prayed for. And let me tell you something I've learned in my own journey. Resistance is often a sign that you're on holy ground. Not everyone will understand your shift. Not everything will go smoothly. There will be moments of doubt and fear and internal wrestling. But that inner resistance isn't always the enemy. It's often the sign that something sacred is happening. It's your soul stretching your old identity, loosening its grip, your new name forming in the unseen. Jesus said in John 13 verse 7, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." And that's where faith lives, in the tension between confusion and clarity. Trust isn't about having answers, it's about surrendering control when you don't. So no, the rug isn't being pulled out from under you, it's being repositioned. The shift may not feel safe, but it is sacred. You're not losing your footing, you're being placed exactly where destiny begins to unfold. Heaven doesn't just want your attention, it wants your permission. Let God lead even when it's uncomfortable. You are not being abandoned, you're being appointed. Sometimes the noise of life fades, not because it disappears, but because your soul finally tunes into the frequency of heaven. It's like standing in a still field after the storm has passed. And for the first time, you realize the silence isn't empty, it's holy. Something has shifted. You don't just want to pray anymore. You want to hear. You want to sense, to know, to discern. And I believe with everything in me, that's exactly what God is awakening in you. This is not your imagination. It's an impartation. Heaven is not far away, hidden behind some unreachable curtain. The veil is thinning. The separation between natural and supernatural is dissolving, and your spirit is beginning to hear what your flesh used to overlook. You are not going crazy. You are becoming spiritually